You already met Dan and Bill earlier today, so thanks for joining us for this panel discussion. Ulf Lundberg will introduce Ulf also later today, but Ulf is also joining us for this panel discussion. Thank you for that. And Kevin McLaughlin also. Kevin will be presenting tomorrow. His introduction is also in the seminar booklet, so Kevin will be also introduced more in detail later, but thank you, Kevin, also for joining us, and Aku with myself are then helping to perhaps, if these gentlemen don't find a topic to discuss, so we'll help, but I don't think that problem really exists. So one question that came during the first two presentations that turned out to be quite popular is that, and this could be the question that we start with, and all the panelists can perhaps express their opinion, that when would you recommend that coaches start teaching systems and giving out playbooks? So question about when, and I would ask all of you shortly to warm up to express your opinion on this.
Yeah, it's tough to answer exactly when, but yeah, really short. I when I was working with the under 16 and under 17 national team for a lot of years, I had one opinion, and then took the challenge to coach men's team in the second league in Sweden. Over the time, I've understood how important the playbook is, and now we're talking about winning the next game and advance to the SHL. So we have had really interesting reflections on the subject today, and it's a tough one.
Well, I'm a youth development guy, first and foremost. So I think the question for me is more, how do we fight against those youth coaches that want to give playbooks to the 8-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 12-year-olds and have face-off plays and power plays and penalty kills way too early. I think that's the bigger fight we have. And so we like to go more of down the pathway of what Bill was talking about, and try to coach the coaches to present more about the player roles, and define it better that way versus set plays or playbooks or face-off plays or power play, penalty kill, forecheck. It's how do you break those systems down into the skills that are necessary for that. And I think before 14 years old, for sure, we need to emphasize those skills and build that foundation and those building blocks to make those plays, like you were talking, making direct passes and not rimming the puck. So it's creating good habits with the puck, without the puck, supporting your teammate that has the puck, or on the defensive side, the defensive player on the puck carrier, the defensive player away from the puck, and those responsibilities.
Well, I haven't coached minor hockey. I've got my son that played, but I think I'm like you, Kevin. I think early on, you gotta let the kids play and really teach about more about concepts, so they understand support concepts, offensively and defensively. But really, I think more at the 15. By the time you're 14, 15, then your systems, they need to get on par with your systems, but it's in the way you present it to the players. And playbooks, I see playbooks more as set plays and face-offs and all those coachable moments in a game. And when they're young, I like when they take ownership of their own plays. I like in one line, they'll start encourage your players to talk to each other. So it's not your playbook for this face-off or that face-off at a young age, but it's kids finding their own solution and what works for them. And my last point, I think it's important for young kids not to be stuck in one role. So as a coach, you coach a young group, well, have your centers play left wing, have your left wing play right wing, have your defensemen move on forward so players can develop in all kinds of different situations.
Maybe you can judge from the way I spoke. I'm not a big fan of playbooks. I do think that we need to continually send out reminders talk about best practices, if you will, and when I'm referring to best practices, talk about solutions to different situations, talk about what habits are going to be most impactful. But I like what Dan said. I really want the players to take responsibility, because one play that might work for one group of 5 or one group of 3 or defensemen may not work for the next group. And I think the more we can expose them to different styles of play and have them collectively get together to sort out solutions to it is the best. So they'll have a cumulative list of best practices, of good habits, and they'll be very comfortable with your style of play.
I think Bill was really right on it before, talking about asking the right questions, and the players have the solutions. We as the coaches don't have them all the time, but asking the right questions is a very good method, I think.
And again, to reiterate that, I think it's questions that are linked to the action. Dan mentioned the what ifs. Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity for players to learn when you're asking questions that link the what ifs. I love with the small games to be able to have consequences. To have winners and losers, and the consequences should not be terse. They should be something that everybody recognizes who the winner. For instance, the losing team has to do a sprint up the other end of the ice and back. Isn't going to hurt anybody, but as hockey players, they always like to play for something. And I think that's it. The other piece would be, in terms of the small games, is would you ever consider having a one season of small games in your practices, so that you end up having teams within your team, and they play competitive games throughout the year? Has anybody done that? Has anybody here done that? In the back, did it work out all right? Yeah, and you keep standings, but when you're doing the games, you're, as the coach, you're the one that puts the different constraints on the games. You're creating the games in the area that you know your team needs to work on, and they're competing with it, and they're having fun with it, and it's a great opportunity to get kids who don't normally play on the same line with each other to play together, and you're creating all of those types of situations, again, with consequences.
Well, my little 2 cents on it, I think you bring up these games and concepts in a very positive and supporting way. Like I just think with young kids, they got to hear yes, and it's no big deal if, but at the same time, it's in the way we present it, the tone we use when we talk to them, and I think it's got a lot to do with it, and to put them in confidence and a mindset that it's okay to make mistakes early. Like a friend of mine was telling me that the 7 top teams in the NHL that had the least amount of turnovers in the neutral zone did not make playoffs. And I was baffled. I'm like, what? Because we go back to stats in the NHL often just to see how good we are as coaches. That's what we do. That's all we do. We look at stats and say, okay, our teams are coming out of our zone. We're number 4 in the league. We're doing pretty good. We convince ourselves with these stats. And then the ones we don't like, sometimes we don't look as much, or we'll say, oh, we really need to look at that. But 7 top teams that had the most turnovers, at least amount of turnovers, did not make playoffs. So what it did say is that teams that did turn the puck over, they were allowed to continue to play. So you got to live with the shortcomings of your teams at any level. So you got to live with that. So if you're going to say at a young age, well, we need tape-to-tape pass. I think your Ds need to learn to make passes. If you just let them rim the puck, you might get out of your zone, but your team's not going to get better. So you might have to deal with a couple turnovers and losing games, especially early in the season. And you gotta live with those shortcomings and encourage your team to grow and grow their skills.
I'll ask one, so it at least somehow justifies that I'm sitting here, because otherwise it'll feel, or does feel, pretty stupid. Let's turn that around. So you've been developing players that can make the decisions by themselves. They've been training different situations that you put them in. So why do you at all need a system or a playbook? Why would you at all need a system or a playbook at the end? Sort of a silly question, but thanks, Kevin.
Did he miss my presentation? Oh, I thought I made that clear. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I just think you need a template and some guidelines in what you do, and a system is going to bring you back to a common denominator between your teams. And I think defensively, you need to be stricter, because it identifies your team and how to defend against perhaps a much better opponent. That's the only thing I know. I've only played with systems. That's what we do. But I think nowadays we do switch and incorporate more skills into the system. It's not as much on the systems themselves, but on the way they execute it and the skills you're going to teach your guys on how to do them.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about it later on, but as I see it, you got to have a frame, like a picture frame, to be able to get out the most of the creativity inside it, and to paint those wonderful paintings. But it got to be inside the frame, otherwise it's all over the wall, and that doesn't work. So that's the way I see it, and I think that's a good. Then they can trust, and they can feel you encourage them to have that creativity inside the frame.
Well, the only thing I would say, I would be very careful with whatever system you put in or playbook you put in, so that you're not limiting your players. What you want to encourage is you want them to take that risk, to know that they can fail, but to be able to improvise, to be able to capture that play in the moment, something that you really can't practice for, other than the player becomes comfortable in that critical moment because they've been exposed to so many different activities within your practices.
Question for Bill. You say that that you don't really lean on a playbook or rely on a playbook, but do you see the players, when they come to your level, they expect a playbook because of the coaches they've had leading up to your level? Or Dan, the same way? Do you think it's the player expectation? Like if you showed up and you said, "Hey, we don't have a playbook, we're going to let you be creative."
For sure. Like I'll give you an example. I was in Montreal. We switched coaches, and we used to overload players with information. And our mindset was, give them the information. Not all of them are going to go and read the 12 sheets we have on the board, because we do it in a video meeting, and then all they saw in the video meetings, those answers are plastered on the wall. But we put it there only for the 5-6 guys that are cerebral guys that want to go back and revisit and think. Because we all have players on our team that will not retain anything. Some will see in the video and get it, and some won't have the attention span in the video, but will like to go and watch the sheets. We took those sheets away when we switched coaches, and within 2 weeks, I had 2 players, one of them being Shea Weber, comes up, he goes, "Dan, can we get some of the info?" I said, "I'll ask the head coach, because he wants to put in his stamp." And the feedback was that there was too much information. So he wants to come in and give you guys less so you guys can play more freely. While these players that have played for 10 years in the NHL, when every time the game starts, they know the other team's a 2-1, 2-4 check team. They know every face-off, the way these guys are coming. And that's information that these guys need in order to be better that night. Doesn't take away from their creativity and how they're going to get the puck to the guys that are open. It just gives them information on what the other team is going to do. And guys want it at our level. Guys want it. They want it. They want it. We ended up, we waited a little bit after discussion with the coach. We ended up having a one-pager with a simple oversight of their systems. But we did. But we took 12 pages and took it into one.
I think most of the players that we get, and Kevin's referring to the college level, so they're all 20 to 23 years old, have played probably junior hockey, prep school hockey, what have you. And a lot of them come in expecting to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And they quickly find out that their responsibility is that they've got to take ownership for their game. And so what we're continually trying to do is to put them in those situations, not give them answers, but ask them the kinds of questions so that they can reflect on what they can do to show their initiative, to be able to really learn more about themselves. Because I think at the end of the day, that in any sports program, that's what you want your players, your people to come out of, is how to make good decisions and how to solve problems and how to get along with other people. And I think that this all ties into it in so many different ways. Because and you might say, well, I'm in the business, I want to win some hockey games. I believe you'll win more games as players take ownership about something that's just greater than their individual responsibility. I don't know if that answers it or not.
So there's a clearly trending question that relates to this, also more related to this area on the list, so practical one. So how do you now, in your daily time you spend with the team, how would you incorporate different elements? So individual, let's say, playing technical skills, turning into perhaps game situation role skills, turning into team play, small area games. So how do you see that balance now going at different stages, talking about smaller kids and then when they start growing older and even going up to NHL level and really elite level players? So how would you divide the time that you spend in different environments?
In Sweden, it's definitely so. We're working hard with it. We gotta play a lot more small area games. And when I saw the question, I was thinking about when you have come out to the rink and the players has entered some minutes before, and they play the perfect small area games. They compete and they skate. It's puck handling and they take the shots and everything. And then you blow the whistle and start the practice as a coach. Isn't that strange? I think again it's hard to say exactly how much, but what at least half the time of the practice, I think.
I just think at the NHL level or pro level that you don't have all week to practice, even junior level in Canada, which is different than probably hockey in Europe overall. But with us, we don't have as much time for the skill development per se and practice. So you have to teach it and incorporate it as you do your practice. And the simple drills that we used to do and just shoot for no reason, they don't exist anymore. Like now you start, I've got two types of warm-up, either going to be a systems warm-up. So guys, D-zone face-off, win. Then we pick up a puck, long shots at the other end. So you got groups in opposite corners. And so you run your two lines doing D-zone face-off wins. Or control breakout. You got 2 control breakout in a row, finish with a shot, next line, let's go. Or I'm going to activate them into a transition drill. To start, first puck, I drop it, and it's going to be a D against 2 guys coming at him a little randomly, and they got to find their 2 open man, and that goes on back and forth in the neutral zone a couple times until I blow the whistle. Then the 2 guys who have the puck, they go and shoot. So I activate the teams early, either with systems or with skills, and then when we do shooting drills, the shooting drills got an element of skill, board work, D-zone breakout, a chip in the neutral zone, and it's built into the skill. So you're accomplishing 2 things. You're doing your goalie warm-up, and you're also developing your skills. But we don't have that much time in practice to do it just for skills purposes.
There's perhaps a quick one that relates to this, that how much at the NHL teams you use small area games. So there was just recent question about small area games in particular at the NHL level. How much you use it and how do you see the value?
Well, we use it not often. If we have time, we'll do to raise the competitiveness in groups. So it'll be a short 2-on-2 or a 3-on-3 in zone. We'll finish practice with oftentimes whatever you got to bring the attention to. I believe in enthusiasm development, guys. Like I think if you great things are accomplished with enthusiasm. So having just a practice for practice, I'll start a practice at times reverse stick. Mike Keenan used to do that. So lefties play righties, righties play lefties, 10 against 10, and you split them up. They have more fun. They activate doing that. And NHL teams will do small area games. It'd be tough for me to say if they do it once every week or once every 2 weeks. I don't know if Don is here, could answer that. Don Granato in Chicago, what they did, but I think we used a couple, but we always go back to the same 2-3 drills all year. Guys know it and they're comfortable with it and they like it.
And at the level that I've been on, my goal is to make sure that they show up every day with a great sense of awareness. And if you remember back to my presentation of the young man who was in his soccer or football outfit with his thumbs up on his first day of practice, and I want them to show up with an awareness. I also want them to know that they're going to end up being uncomfortable, and so we start every practice with some kind of small area competitive activity, and honestly, and now these are 20-something-year-old young men. We will spend upwards of 80-85% of our practice in some type of small area competitive type game with constraints for a specific area that we want to try to get better at, because I just find there's no better way. They do get uncomfortable with it initially, and I think as time goes on, they get to expect it, and they won't settle for a simple flow drill that doesn't capture their imagination.
I think this epitomizes you have to know who you're coaching. And if you're coaching little kids, I would say my practice would be 80 to 100% games. But you have to know different types of games. And then, Bill, you said it in your presentation. You have to know the reason you're doing the game, because I think a lot of people, if at any coaching clinic, if you ask coaches, do you do small area games, almost 100% of the hands will go up. But then the more you talk, do they understand why they're doing that game, or did they just see somebody else run that drill or that game, or they actually liked it as a player, so we're going to do it with this age group? What's the purpose of that game? And I think the games break down into they're fun. I agree 1,000% with you, especially through the development phases in those ages. It brings energy. So I like to start every single practice with a game. With kids, I think they make sure they're on time and get on the ice on time, because you're going to start with a fun game. It brings the energy up in practice. Then you have competitive games, and I think we all want more competitive players, right? Does anybody in here have 20 players that are all competitive to your liking, the level that you like. I think we all, as coaches, want more compete and battle out of our players. And then there's those games that I think teach the habits in the systems or team play or concepts, whatever we want to call them. And so within our practices, I like to see a blend of all of those. So the fun games, the battle, compete games, and then the team play and systems. And I think pretty much every game Bill put up there, I think you could emphasize the offensive side of the focus of that game, or the defensive side, or the transition within that game. And so I think you really have to understand the age group, and you have to understand the purpose of that and where it is in your practice. And you have to manage players' energy, and you have to manage their mental focus too. Sometimes I think as coaches we'll try a game, and the game doesn't look pretty. So we go back to a stagnant, blocked drill because it looks good, but the game didn't really get to where we wanted them to get. And you have to do that repetitively so that they can learn the avenues and the answers within the game. And it takes time to do that. I think as coaches, we're not patient enough to let that evolve and let those players find those solutions. And Dan might find the solution the first day we play it, but Kevin, it may take him 2 weeks to figure out the solution. And I think that's the magic of the coach, and having that ability to monitor his different players in their evolution.
Thank you, Kevin. There's also a specific question to you that seems to be supported by, well, bigger group, at least two people. So that you are interested in finding basically the coaches who work with small kids through the systems. So what kind of tools do you use for that? As in USA Hockey, you mentioned earlier that you are trying to help coaches who work with smaller kids not to use system set plays to help them develop. So what kind of tools you use to address that issue, fight against that kind of behavior?
A shock collar? No. What kind of tools? We just try to provide more resources. We try to give examples, best practices, show sit down, meet with coaches. We have online coaching modules. We provide resources for free on the websites, resources at the coaching clinics for free. We have 2 different small area games book. We have a mobile coach app that's free that has a lot of small area games. But it's hard for coaches to take that leap of faith from the blocked practice and the predetermined outcomes, because some coaches, that's their security blanket, and that's what they've always known, and they haven't. A lot of times, coaches that played hockey haven't coached young kids before, and so they're nervous about that. They're challenged about that. It's we joke that it's herding cats, maybe. So to embrace that chaos, to make it fun, to bring the energy, to allow the mistakes, is not easy. But I think coaches that have implemented that game-oriented practice, when they go to the actual playing of the game, they see their players be able to read the play, react, and make plays, and have success that maybe in a predetermined drill or predetermined outcomes that in practices. Those players aren't learning that same way to read the game.
Okay, thank you. So there's now new poll actually activated that relates to this question that we are discussing, and perhaps the last topic that we open up before the lunch relates to this sort of concept of winning the result versus learning and developing. So how do you see this expectation for coaching process defining what coaches are doing, and how do we overcome that, and especially in youth hockey to more emphasize and embrace learning and development in different offensive, defensive situations, different varied skills, having the courage to try and be comfortable in making mistakes. So how do you see that question? Result versus the process.
Well, I just talked about, I do think you got to live with the shortcomings of your team, and even at the pro level. I did coach with another coach, pretty successful this year, that used to say, we're going to come out the middle, we're going to turn the puck over, I'm going to live with it, because we're going to be so good at making passes through the middle. Well, it's the same way with, it should be that way with U16 teams. I mean, you gotta look at the big picture, the development picture. You want your teams, first of all, you know, how many young players on your team, how many guys that are late birthdays on your team that will take a little bit more time to develop. I think your concepts is what you need to drive home. I think the non-negotiables as far as work ethic and attitude, those are two things you got to go back to with young kids. My son played. Never once did I talk about something that was system-based when I gave him praise, or if I had criticism. Never, not once. I've never done that. Never about points. Never about goals and assists or physicality or anything like that. I wanted my son to have fun and the same experience I had as a kid. I had no pressure from my parents. I just played for fun, and it became a job way later in life. And I was fortunate enough to have parents that did that. What I did do with my son is just ask him, hey, did you have fun? Did you work hard? How's your work ethic? Good? Oh, perfect. And how's your attitude? Your attitude with your teammates, your attitude with the opposition, with the referees. He had a little bit more of an issue with that. But
Well, I think just trusting the process is so important, and for us coaches to, in the reality with parents and when the players comes up with other advisors and agents and you know the whole entourage around the players, we have to have the patience and we have to talk about long-term development and. Yeah, that's a lot of our job, I think.
You just stole my great question. But maybe really practically, let's say a lot of the room, if you look at the poll results as well, that the coaches here, let's imagine everybody agrees, you need a bit of chaos in the practices, you need a lot of these games. In a way, the players need to look bad. Let's say half the Frölunda has, I think, 50-50 rule. That's the expectation, that half of the practice has to look shitty, essentially. But then you're dealing with parents or you're dealing with management and so on, might not quite agree with that. They like to see nice-looking practices. So do you have any practical advice to the coaches here that how do you go about it when you're in that type of environment? You know what you want to do, but you're probably not supported by others. So how do you go about it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about explanation and educating the parents as well. That's the one and only way, I think. And it takes time from your players, but you have it back later on.
I agree. I think it's just communicate, and explain. Obviously, it depends on the age of the group that you're coaching, but I think one of you guys mentioned it this morning. It's a new era. I mean, kids expect more communication and explanation as the why. Parents also, we have to communicate with them. You know, when our parents dropped us at the rink, they dropped us at the rink. They didn't stick their nose on the glass and watch every single drill and every single move that the kid made and we make. And they didn't have their iPad out filming their own kid every single shift. But I think it's just it's the nature of the beast now, and you have to communicate and you have to explain why you do things and what they're going to see. And we're going to have our ups and downs, and we're going to stub our toe. But that's the coach encouraging kids to be creative and kids to try and reach and stretch their own skills and try to get to that next level. And the coach, I'm going to give them a leash, because we have a saying that let's win the race to the right finish line. And the right finish line in our book isn't this Saturday or the end of this month. You know, what is the finish line?
The only thing I would add is the communication piece obviously is important with the youth hockey in our town up through high school. we've encouraged meetings with the parents and the players 3 different times during the year, beginning, middle, and end. But I think what comes out of it is we really want if the parents to communicate with their youngsters and vice versa, because I think the parents need to hear it from their son or daughter, not just from the coach. And so it really sets up a nice dynamic where their relationship grows within the context of the sport. That would be my suggestion.
Well, I think I know at the NHL level, guys don't have, I don't want to say the balls, but coaches, their practice time is so valuable that bringing in a new drill that was just made up, that's not their own, perhaps an assistant coach told them it's a big gamble. They only do so many drills in a week, so not a lot of coaches will venture out and do new drills. Some coaches will do them. I think the key is to identify why didn't your drill, did it work or didn't it work? Did it serve the purpose or not? And then if you screwed up, then you just got to admit it. And I've come out of practice saying, how do you, and I always ask the assistant, how do you think? Yeah, the guys weren't sharp on that. Yeah, fuck, they weren't sharp. We weren't sharp. I screwed up. I needed more information to give them so that they could execute the drill better. We'll do it better next time. What I do, I've got my practice. I've got my practice drill. I'm an old paper guy, and then I'll use a red pen. And whatever I used in my practice that worked, I just keep it as is. If not, I write a little feedback, 2 little words in red that next time I need to do this better. Next time I need to do that better. That way, my practice will get better. And the same way, you got to live with the shortcomings. If you think your drill is right and the players don't get it, they might not get it in September, might not get it in November. But by January, you'll be surprised how well they can execute.
So I'm wondering if it's going to change in the NHL, if you're going to be willing to run drills or games, if the players knew that they were not being judged on the outcome of the drill or the game and how well it went, but being judged more by the fact that they tried something, they may have failed with it, they grew from it, and they got better. Dan, do you think that it would ever change to that so players would grow in that way?
It's a different beast. I'll tell you, Bill, it's not a kumbaya league. It's not. The reality is.
What are you saying?
I'm saying we practice. I don't know how many people watch your practice at Middlebury. We've got about 22 reporters in Montreal taping, and anytime there's a discussion between a coach and a player, at night there's 4 TV shows, and they'll say, "What is he talking?" Oh, you'll see in that drill, you'll see, and they break down our practices. They break down everything. We don't have some luxuries that minor league coach might have. We don't. I'm just telling you that's a reality. But the truth is also that we are willing to let the guys learn and to let the guys make mistakes and not execute. But you got to pick your spots.
But wouldn't that be a great opportunity for all the youth coaches to see the NHLers screw up in practice and coaches conversing with the players, and they all grew? And if the reporters put that on TV, it would empower the rest of the youth coaches to say, "Hey, then there's no reason we can't do it. It doesn't have to be perfect."
Well, that happens, Bill. Like if you watch practice, there'll be screw ups. They will screw up, and coaches will come in and stop it, and if it's a screw up because of a lack of execution, a coach is going to respond in one way, and then when it's a lack of willingness to do the job, then they'll react in different ways that I'm sure you guys have all reacted the same way. So you gotta be the judge as a coach, and you gotta fight your battles. Sometimes you got a big game. Do you want to bring the mood down? Do you want to do it in front of everybody? Is it your best player that you need to bring out one-on-one and say, "Hey, your level of practice is not good enough. You're my captain. Today wasn't good enough. I hope you realize that." I might not need to do it in front of everybody with reporters watching, but there's no such thing as a perfect practice, but we strive for it every day.